Just got back from Worlds and I'm grinding. Something, riding. Hello and welcome everyone. Today we're talking about almost like a sneak peek preview. Wow, it is late and I can't speak. Today's gonna be kind of like a preview to what I'm uploading tomorrow. So tomorrow I'm planning to upload the GiFT VGCS finals commentary, but the GiFT VGCS this time is quite special in that it's using a different format that's gained some traction over in the East mostly, so in Japan, in the 2-deck format. So this is a format that was originally shown during one of the official live streams actually, as kind of similar to, if you play Hearthstone or Shadowverse, you're probably familiar with the Conquest format. So this is a format where they're trying to introduce this into the Daivangasai, so the big Vanguard festival that's going to happen at the start of May this year. And then if it goes well and they say that players are enjoying it, then they might incorporate it into the WGP circuit in autumn. So this is something I think that is worth talking about just because it might become something pretty big that potentially even we in the English side might actually get to experience in the BCS in autumn, for example. Now, the way that the 2-deck format works is that one player, it's one player versus one player, it's not a team format, brings 2 decks. And now these 2 decks can be of the same gift type, but they have to be 2 different clans. Like you can take Royal Paladin and Shadow Paladin, but you cannot take like 2 Shadow Paladin decks, right? But obviously you can also take, for example, like Neo Nectar and Murakumo, so it can be different gifts as well, but the only requirement of like different decks is that they're different clans, that's all. Now one of these decks is set as your kind of leading slash primary slash first deck, and then one of them is set as your secondary deck. Now how this works is that when you start the match, and it takes place in a best of 3 setting, so it takes a bit longer time as well, is that both players start with their first slash primary deck, and then you start the game like that. Then the winner of the first game will have to switch into their secondary deck, so the second deck that you bring into that tournament, and then the losing player gets to choose between their whichever one of the 2 decks that they want to use, because the objective of every round in the 2-deck format is that one player has to win with both decks. So that if you win with the first one, then you immediately switch to the second one and you try to win with it. And then even if you lose the second game, you play game 3 with the deck that you have not won with, so that way you keep on playing. Whereas for the losing player, they still get to choose between 2 decks because they still haven't won with any one of them. So the objective is to have full mastery of 2 decks and win with them in a best of 3 setting. Now I think this is a really cool format, and as I said, it's already been attempted in the GiFT VGCS run by Can You Say G, and we're going to be taking a look at the finals because I'm really excited to actually do that tomorrow, of, you know, just how it looks, how the whole thing goes down. So if you're interested in that, you definitely should check out tomorrow's video where we're going to be taking a look at just that. But there's already, you know, some kind of like pros and cons that you can imagine, and also Can You Say G already talked about on Twitter after hosting the event. Obviously one of the best things is that it lets people use their favorite decks. Like, you know, when you go to a locals and you got 2 good decks that you can't really choose from, it's like, oh, do I want to use Angel Feather, or do I want to use Murakumo, or like something like that. This event lets you take both, and that's really nice. I think for some reason, I didn't think about that too much, but a lot of people just said, oh, it's a nice event because I can use 2 of my favorite decks. And somehow both, we were talking with Can You Say G and we were like, huh, we never thought about that, huh? That's actually a pretty nice factor. Then also, obviously, best of 3 as a format adds skill factor to the game. And this is actually, I want to take note actually, because this 2-deck format is actually used in Buddy Fight in Japan on an official level. That's why I'm saying that it's not too unrealistic that it will be implemented into WGP, because in Japan, their official WGP actually uses this format where both players bring 2 different decks and then they play out with the same kind of rule set that I explained just now. So it's already in other Bushiroad games in Japan, it's already been implemented and been used, and that's why it's actually really cool that if they do this for Vanguard, it's going to be very nice. And so as I said, best of 3 adds skill factor, and there's another additional skill factor in that you have to master 2 different decks in order to really do well at this tournament. So you can't just be like a one-trick pony that plays one clan and then, I don't know, brings like some random other deck that they're not too good with, because even if you're always winning with your one-trick pony clan, you're still gonna have to win with your other one if you want to proceed in the tournament. So I think that adds a really cool like essence of skill to the tournament and to these kind of events, and so I find that format really cool for that reason. I think it's also a bit easier with standard decks just because they take up less space because there's no G-Zone. They're, for now at least, cheaper, and I think it would still be interesting with a G-Zone, it's just that it would take longer to like prepare everything on the table, because you have a 50-minute time limit on the round. So that way, like, if you have to like set up your G zone, set up everything, it's gonna take a little bit of time. But I mean, I guess the same could be said with standard decks too. But I think it's just a little bit easier for people to do this with standard right now, because there's a lot of people with decks compared to premium. And I think the biggest con actually is that it just takes a long time. Is that you're not just shuffling, you know, one deck every game, you're shuffling through 2 decks. And, you know, that does take time, and, you know, you do have some people being confused on how, you know, it might work, or how, like, which deck stays, which deck cannot be played anymore, etc. So that way, it can take some time, and I think that's probably the biggest negative factor of this kind of format as well. Now, G, as I said, already posted on his Twitter some kind of, like, review of his event and how he saw that players felt about this format, and generally it seems that it's very positively approved by the players, both the new players and, you know, the more casual players, as well as the super competitive players, because for competitive players it's like a more competitive way of playing standard, and obviously they like that because, you know, that's their kind of essence in playing this game. Whereas for the newer players, like, even if they had just one deck, apparently a lot of community members just gave them second decks, or like, oh, here, you know, you can use this as long as you can participate, like, just go ahead and participate, you know, we got decks for you. And that's really cool, I think, because that way the new players can also experience this like extra layer of competitiveness quite early in their competitive career, for example, and I think that's also really, really cool. I think for me also, when I think about the format, it's kind of interesting because you have the options to, for example, have like an anti-meta deck. As, like, let's say if we're playing in premium, you could put like your Dark Face deck as your secondary deck, and then, you know, let's say like you lose with your first deck against Azel, but then you win with the secondary deck, and then you have a good matchup potentially against the third game. So that way you can kind of put anti-meta options as your second option, and you can kind of like really choose your decks based on the meta, and then kind of play through the format in that way. You know, and I think looking at the buddy fight side of things, that's how it happened. I think for this year, a lot of people took these more like slower, more consistent decks into the big tournaments of this format. Whereas, but then again, last year, the year before that, there was like a 3-deck format, so really you saw every round with just like 2 of those 3 decks, and so that's something we want to avoid. You know, standard is a lot more diverse than that, and that's good, but that's just kind of interesting for me to see, because also another really positive thing to me, just thinking about, is that as a commentator / you know, like spectator, etc., you see a lot more decks, you see a lot more cards in action. You know, when you're looking at, let's say, if we have like a dry spot in the meta, you might only see like, I don't know, 2 or 3 decks, right? So that would be like a terrible meta where there's only like 2 or 3 good decks and everything else is kind of like meh. But then with this, you know, even during those kind of metas, you would maybe have like a really good rogue pick, and then that way you would get to see that being played in a high level event by, you know, good competitive players, and that way you get more coverage for that kind of deck, more kind of news and more information on how to play it and stuff like that. So I think generally for the game's growth and for the game itself, it's actually a very cool concept. So I really like this format. I was initially thinking of just like introducing it at the start of the commentary video, but honestly I wanted to make a video just about it, because if Bushiroad does push this as a format that we can play in the future in big, you know, official events, then I hope that this video lasts and that people can look back at it, because to me this is a really cool format. I might try this out with some friends at locals. Hell, maybe I'll do, you know, DFUC 2 with this format, depending on how people feel, because I think it'll be really, really interesting. So that's just my thoughts, honestly. I think it's a really cool format. I think it would be, I hope to see that it does well in the Daivangasai in May, and then we'll see whether it gets implemented into WGP or not, and then whether that has anything to do with the West or not as well. But I don't know how the Western side is reacting to this format. You know, I've only really seen people on, you know, in like Asia talking about it. So let me know what you think of this format. Do you think it's actually cool? Do you think it's more interesting to play this way? Would you rather play with 2 different decks, or are you more focused on perfecting one deck's playstyle and just taking it to a big event? So do let me know your thoughts. I'm generally really curious to have a discussion about this, so let me know your thoughts in the comments and let's see what kind of ideas we get. That's gonna be it for this video. Don't forget, tomorrow I will be commentating the GiFT VGCS, so you'll see the video, you'll see this format in action live from the Malaysian tournament scene with a lot of really good players, so it's gonna be really hyped to see. I already know which decks, and another thing that's worth looking forward to, that GiFT VGCS takes place in the VBTO4 format. So we're gonna see things like Gust Blaster, you know, we're gonna see all those new cards for the most part, and so I'm really hyped to actually cover that as well, because brand new cards that just released. Like, it's not even been a week since I'm recording this and probably uploading this that those cards have been released, so it's gonna be really hype. I'll try to even get it out that it's not even been a week since the cards released that I get the commentary out. So I think it should be really nice to see. And so that's what I mean. Again, we're gonna see a lot of different decks, a lot of cool coverage for the newest meta, and that's gonna be really, really awesome. So I hope you do look forward to it, because I am as well. But on that note, that's gonna be it for me today. Don't forget to click a bunch of things. There's stuff in the description. There's stuff on your screen. Just click it. Just check things out. God, my intro gets so long, I don't even want to do it anymore. So just do things. Look in the description. Very nice. Alright, that's gonna be for me today. It's getting late. My jet lag is still pretty strong, so it's like 8 p.m. and I'm already dead tired. So I'm gonna peace out over here. So that's gonna be it for me today, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.